Hey guys, welcome back to Tough Love with Dr. John O'Connor. Today's guest, Chef David Burke, award-winning Robert Mondavi Award of Excellence, Ernst & Young New Jersey Entrepreneur of the Year, James Beard Award, Best Chef New York, TEDx speaker. TV shows include Top Chef Masters, Every Day with Rachel Ray, NBC's Today Show, Bloomberg's Small Business Series, The Mentor. David, welcome to the show.
Oh, nice to be here. Welcome to the restaurant.
David, I wanted to get right into the podcast today and start by asking you your career, the history, everything was so impressive. What or who was the reason you became the chef you are today?
Well, I don't know if there's a what or a who, but there's a lot of people that were, the who would be me, but there were a lot of people that helped on the way. What was the inspiration or the spark would be probably the opportunity and something, when I worked as a dishwasher in a kitchen in the 70s, it's hard for a kid to decide what they want to do, right? I got a father saying, yeah, you got to think about your career, what you want to do. I was a pretty bright kid. I was an athlete. And it was, the regular 70s kid jerking around, drinking beer and smoking whatever. And I got a job in a restaurant, and I was like, this feels good. I was the oldest boy in my family. I was with older guys in the kitchen. It was like part of a sports team. Being in a kitchen back then it's all teamwork. There's a quarterback, that's the chef, director of ops or whatever it is, the coach.
Yep.
And then there's everybody else in their different, their different roles. And when showtime, the whistle blows at 5 o'clock for dinner, you got to be ready. That's kickoff. And you got to be, and it's like
it's go
3
time.
or 4 hours of like intensity. And I was watching that from behind a dishwasher, watching these guys. And I think it had to do with the not boring, challenging, never a day that repeats itself. Opportunity, where if you really wanted to work hard, you can get it. There was ripe fruit. If you want to climb a tree, you'll get it. And that's kind of what it was. Like, if you want to put the work in, you can get. There's no corporate ladder.
Love that. And I have to tell you, today's podcast is pretty unique for us as well, because it was the first time I think we saw a monsoon and a flood watch coming into the beautiful restaurant. Jumping into the TV career, because, when I was researching you, it's impressive. Who was, alongside you being a master chef, who was the chef you had the most fun with working on TV?
There was a guy named, early on for the Food Network, it was a show called Ready, Set, Cook. It was two chefs, they had 20 minutes to make a dish each. There was a famous, well-known French guy named Jean-Louis Paladin, and he was from D.C. at the Watergate Hotel. He had a super cookbook, highly decorated, but not a typical French guy. He had long hair, smoked cigarettes, and deep voice. He wasn't snooty, buttoned up. He was a rock star kind of.
He was a grinder.
He looked like a dark-haired Peter Frampton, and skinny, but loved life. And he came from the southwest of France, where I had worked at one point. And I competed with him, and I was like, man, this guy's going to kill me. And I won. And awesome. He was so pissed off me. And we were friends, but it took him a while. I offered it.
Took a while to get over it?
Well, he won one. It was 3 sets. He won one. And they used to vote with the audience had a picture of a pepper or a tomato. And I was the pepper, I guess. He was the tomato. And they voted by the sign that went up. So he won the first one. I won the second one. We're tied. Then the third one was dessert, and I'm very good at pastry. So I made a great dessert, and I won. And I said, Jean-Louis, let's split a cab back up down. He's like, no.
It's a ninth inning closeout. I like it. So,
but he was a fun guy to compete with. Competition and being on TV is great for the brand. Some of them are very competitive and fairly done, and some of them are a little skewed. But most of them I've been on have been somewhat fairly done. But I've been a judge too, so I know both sides of it. So when I do judge now, I always do. With TV, sometimes they have to judge what the audience wants to see, not what the judges want to see.
Understood.
So
it's so hard to kind of nail down a topic with you, because you do so many things in the hospitality industry. But what would you say if you had to pick of the dozens of things, one of the most exciting things you've done in the last decade in the restaurant, whether it be opening a restaurant or being on a show, that you could think of a story where you're like, whether it was opening a restaurant, I think you said you had opened something in Dubai or your name in there. But what would you say if you were telling the listeners, like you just couldn't believe how exciting it was doing it?
Well, opening restaurants are exciting. It's exciting. And it should never not be exciting. Otherwise, it's time to move on.
Got it.
Right? Because it's a big deal. You get your name on a door or on a sign or in a billboard or whatever it may be. Opening Saudi Arabia was exciting. Wasn't my favorite place or my favorite restaurant, but it certainly was exciting. I got a doctorate from Johnson & Wales. That was a very, very important day for me, being recognized by university for what I do and getting an honorary diploma, and that was great. Sometimes it's, it's exciting to see something succeed. It's exciting to build something and sign a good deal, and then there's certain things that are, it's business. So you can't control everything. So I learned a decade or so ago, even more, that getting so attached to something can hurt you.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
Because it could go away. This is this takes constant work, constant pressure, constant innovation. You can't just create something and walk away. And we opened a lot of restaurants, and I learned some of this now. And it's we took on a lot. And you can't manage everything correctly. When you grow up with a family that has 10 kids down the street, 4 of those kids are not doing well. Yeah. They're in trouble, in jail. They're banged up.
You might even know where they are.
Right. So same as you open 10 restaurants in 3 years or so. You know what? They're not all getting the attention they need.
And how many restaurants do you currently have right now with your name on it?
16 or so.
16 or so. Got it.
We manage, operate, own, lease, whatever it may be. And 2 more coming. And we'll probably lose 1 or 2. Our contract in one of them is up. Our contract in another as a consultant is up. We closed one in North Carolina. It was underperforming, bad location. And we might start looking at the ones that are not performing because our time to try to get them to a certain level is being wasted and we're losing money. And it's very difficult now with the cost of food, cost of labor, and the competition. And it's going to be a tough run for the next several months.
So, with that being said, what would you say is the difficult experience you had? And we can bring it back to COVID because I saw you had a background of a puppeteer.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that might be a cute story to share. But what was for you, and I target a lot of restaurant people because I think with the background of my podcast of Tough Love, having to lay off employees, then trying to figure it out, then trying to be half open, indoor, outdoor. I think you went to the podcast and started doing a cooking show or whatnot. But with regards to the puppet, tell the audience about what that was. And I think you created a replica of yourself or something, and you kind of went, you went to social media with that. You went to that platform. Well,
the puppet was given to me as a birthday gift in 2019 or 18, maybe 18 or 19, by a girl I was dating because I told her I wanted to do a cooking show with a puppet or a talk show where the puppet was the bad guy. He was the one that could badmouth other chefs, not me. Like, you know what? I went to so-and-so's restaurant. It was okay. And I'd be like, no, he's my friend. It's good. But that sucked. Where he was like the sidekick, right? He was, so I had the puppet made. And I had other puppets at home because I bought them at auction. And I always wanted to do this. I wanted to be able to throw my voice in a kitchen and have the puppet because I thought it would be a fun show because the puppet is the person that asks the questions that the viewer might want to ask. Like, why olive oil instead of butter? Why do you put so much seasoning in it? Or why does it, why do you put the oil in the pasta? Whatever, the puppet would be the person asking those questions in real time. Yeah. And we had and I still want to revisit the puppet, like how to cook for a date for dummies. Like he's a dummy. The puppet's a dummy. Yeah, so I'm teaching him how to go. Anyway, when the pandemic hit, I can speak for most chefs. If you became a chef at a young age, as a teenager, you don't cook at home, and nor have you ever made. If you're not married, and even if you are married, you're not cooking at home on your day off. Rarely, you're going out to eat. Maybe your wife's cooking, maybe your partner's cooking, whatever it may be. So I never cooked at home, right? During the pandemic, I'm stuck.
Now you're chefing it up.
I'm living in Atlantic Highlands. I got a nice kitchen. I'm like, you know what? puppet time. So I start shooting the puppet show that I wanted to do, mostly for a couple of reasons. One was to teach people how to cook. We don't shop in a supermarket either. So for me to go to a supermarket and shop takes forever because I don't know where anything is.
Yeah, right. You get lost.
We eat out. So I bring the food home. I stock up for the lockdown. It's scary. It's just scary times. I mean, my businesses are all closed. I got no income now. I don't know if I'm going to get the PPP money. I'm scared.
Yeah,
I'm nervous.
Yeah, 100%.
And a lot of people are. So I start cooking like batches, like making whole roast chicken. So, and the puppet comes into play, and I'm like, listen, if you're going to cook for 4. Even if I'm alone, I'm cooking for 4, for 6. And I'm going to give my neighbor some food, or I'm going to make some leftovers.
Share
the puppet's
love.
name is Lefto. He's my left hand, and he makes the leftovers.
Got
so
it.
the whole idea is if you're going to make dinner, think about what you're making the next day with what you're making now. So buy the tortillas for the chicken. It's not rocket science, but anyway. But what happened was the inspiration of the puppet and the funniness of it, and saying, keep an eye on your neighbor, make sure you call somebody down the street if you have leftover food, bring it to them. I live alone; I'm not going to eat it all, and that's kind of where it came about. Raspberry Park picked that up. We had a good show, and it was funny. And people stopped me in the airports and stuff, and they're like, "Is Lefto in your luggage and stuff?" Because he made an impact. He made some money too, because. Visa, United Airlines, a couple other big companies said, can you shoot a video with a cooking class with Lefto? And for our black card holders, we get 50 of them to zoom in, and you do a 1 hour.
Cool.
I said, I got to talk to Lefto's agent.
See what he says.
He made $25,000.
There you go. Hey, listen.
I put it in safekeeping.
Very good. So tell me this. What would you say, for the young culinary, the kids out there, and, I'm talking to a GOAT, an icon. What's the hardest thing about being at the level you're at and the expectations you set on yourself? Because the one thing I hear with everybody at the level of excellence that you've achieved, you expect, Chef David Burke to show up and, what's the hardest thing for you? Like, how do you keep yourself at that level? Like you said, like going into the game, right? So you're the quarterback. And you've been the quarterback for a long time. I'm
not the quarterback anymore. I'm the coach or the owner of the team, where you're not on the field as much.
Yeah.
So it can be. So think of Jerry Jones when he loses. He's frustrated, but he can't go out and throw the ball.
Yeah.
Because he's busy, right?
Yeah.
So there's a frustration with not being in the game and expecting someone to be as good as you and or to think like you. And so there's, I can't teach everybody. If you haven't worked side by side with me, you don't know exactly how we're thinking and how I would do things. So it's a constant teaching thing. And we have restaurants with excellent chefs, all of them. Some are better than others. Some managers are better than others. So when you have the right combination, they don't need less babysitting. Then you got to cut some younger girls or guys in the kitchens, and they don't have the same desire or experience or level of, when you work in New York City and Europe, where I have a top level, you think what a chef is to me is different than what a chef is here, out in a suburban restaurant or down in North Carolina.
Sure. Like you said, the guy from France in DC, I probably never expected to be a chef, right?
Listen, I'll tell you something. I tell you this now. If I get my nails cut, my grass cut, or my hair cut, I hire a person with a license to do it. They need to be licensed professionals. Chef, don't need a license. Huh. It's the craziest thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Guy can poison 500 people in a dinner, right? He doesn't need a license. So it's not easy to be a chef, but it's easy to say you're a chef. And it's easy sometimes to climb the ladder, especially in economies where the chef's too expensive. So the owners and investors say, well, you know what? We don't need Bob the chef. Sous chef knows the recipes. Let's make him the chef. Save $100,000, right? And then that guy becomes a chef really without not the right training. And all of a sudden, that ladder has
sticky.
The ladder has less rungs on it, and then you're hanging at the top, and all of a sudden, it's hard to go back down. So the training gets diluted a little bit. The passion, to a certain degree, gets diluted. I think that, like I said, when I started, before there was anything like a celebrity chef, before being a chef was cool, before people called chef on the street, before you had your name on doors and wrote books, and when the chef was just someone in the back of the swinging doors.
Yes.
If you were a chef, you were there because you had the artistic desire and the passion to do that. 20 years later, in the late 90s and the mid-90s, the Culinary Institute did a great job in shaping the American cuisine and the professionalism, but also has a responsibility to make sure, and all the schools do, to make sure that people going to these schools are going for the right reason, not for fame. not to be cool, not to be adored, right? Because the truth of the matter is 50%, I believe, of the people that go to a lot of these schools drop out.
Really?
Change careers. Well, it's just so, when you watch Food Network, you don't, even if you watch The Bear and all, you see how hard it is. That's one show that's giving you the drugs, the alcohol, the stress, the mental health issues.
Without that, listen, I mean, how many dishes you're making per hour, stuff coming back, it's unbelievable.
Well, those shows, when they show you, that's nothing. That's a cakewalk because the pressure's on for the finesse, but not the volume. Yeah. You go into these places with volume, and then you're rocking and rolling. But they don't show you the physical pressure, lifting heavy. You're lifting cases of meat and bones,
without a doubt,
and fish and ice, and you got to cut it. And you're up on your feet 60 hours a week, working holidays, weekends. You work Saturday night. You're back for Sunday. You'll work 10, 12 hours a day, and you may not sit down and eat. You'll stand the whole day. That's not uncommon in a kitchen. And it's crazy. Then on the way home, even myself included, I'm stopping at a fast food joint at 12 o'clock because I'm so wound up, I don't have time to sit at my own restaurant table and eat.
Well, our mutual friend James Avery always talks about that. And he's like, we work out together all the time. And I laugh. I'm like, bro, I grew up in the restaurant business. I worked at, a place, Farmingdale House and Vans and this and that with my mom. And she brought me everywhere she went. And, these guys were they were making like, fine dining, but they were eating Taco Bell. Right. And he literally, what he says, he's like, people are reaching out all the time because, we just, are food prepping, eating healthy food. So it's funny to hear what you're saying.
Well, you can't eat. You need an hour to unwind. It's like, think about playing a basketball game or football game. Yeah. You need to decompress, and then you're hungry. Now, if you get home and you're hungry, you don't want to cook.
Absolutely.
So and what's open now? Drive-throughs, late night. That's it.
So it wouldn't be tough love without asking the difficult question. What would you say was the most difficult time in your career? And I mean, here we are right here and you're still a beast in the industry. How did you get past it? What was it? How did you get past it? And what would be the advice you throw out there for people listening?
I think there was a couple of periods. I was very young, 26 years old, probably close to 30, running the River Cafe.
In the city.
Fucking beast of a, I mean, it's too much pressure for a guy that young to be a chef. I mean, I started young. I was very ambitious. I learned. I won awards. I represented the United States. And then, you're getting a lot of press and you're making money and you don't have an editor, meaning you're single. No one's, you're the quarterback of a winning team. So
it's a Joe Namath experience.
So when something's going wrong, nobody really wants to say it's okay. Let him be. So what? He stayed out late. So what? He's funked, So all of a sudden, it's like we can put up with this. And then when I had left the River Cafe to go somewhere else, Park Avenue Cafe opened a lot of places. Then I was one point, probably 12 years ago, where I was kind of a little bit misbehaving, stressed out. Had fight with partnerships, and the partnership had something to do with the stress too, because things weren't. There was always a lot of tension, and I don't like conflict that much. I'm used to just doing things and getting it right, doing what's best for the customer, what's best for the team, what's best for us, and creating. Not and so you go through a period. For your liking. Now, it's not uncommon in this business for people to go through that. People have gone through the Me Too movement. I've never had any issues with any of that, thank goodness. But there's alcohol. There's late nights. When you're in the nighttime business, nighttime things happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? I mean, if you're in New
Drugs
York City,
alcohol,
this is for a young chef. In New York City, you get off at midnight, and think about the 80s and 90s. Yeah. There's nothing to do but go out.
Yeah, that's when the city opens up.
And everything's open. So I lived in a building in Fort Lee, right? I lived and Jay-Z lived on the top floor. He had a bunch of floor. Him and his wife, Beyonce. And when I'd see him coming home at 4 a.m, 5 a.m,
middle of the morning.
Well, but he'd be out, he'd be driven or this or that, or I'd say, or he'd be leaving, or vice versa. My doorman was like, "What the hell are you doing out so late?" I said, "Listen, I get off work at 12. It's only 4 or 5 hours after work. I went out to eat. I went out this. So if I worked till 5 and got home at 10, that's completely normal. But to come home at 4 or 5 in the morning is derelict because nothing good has happened."
Yeah, exactly. So great answer on that. How do you stay current and on top of your game? Right. I mean, I think I had a celebrity coach on, and it was funny, like where they would bring in like a lot of younger people around them to see what 2024 is doing. But when I walk in your restaurants, you do a fantastic job of just being on it. It seems like every spot is done to the nines. And when you have 16, 18 restaurants, is it the team? Is it you?
Well, I'm glad you said that, because sometimes I think that we're not as, when you see it, when it's in your backyard, your house never looks as good as to yourself when you look at it as your neighbors think it looks.
Sure.
Because
you're looking at it all the time.
They're looking at it all the time, right? Like, I look at certain things, same as your car or your food or your designing your restaurants. Some of ours are new. This one, I'm at Red Horse Rumsden. I love the decor here because it's a good pair of jeans. It's been around. This is what a restaurant should be for a guy my age. You walk in and you're like, this feels good. This feels good. You go to a restaurant. There's good restaurants in strip malls, and there's good restaurants in high rises. Good restaurants, like in Red Bank. There's a restaurant that's in a storefront, right? That's a store. It's not a restaurant. It wasn't built to be a restaurant. This is an inn. There's ghosts here, that are still burping up good meals, right?
Absolutely.
And this driving through this town, and this is a destination. You pull up, and you're like, wow. So that was the charm and the romance of some of these types of restaurants outside of cities. But I like that we have new designs. We try the place looks good. I sometimes think maybe our drinks aren't as fancy as should be. I'm my own worst critic. I go to one restaurant and I see something. I'm like, oh, well, why don't we have that? Because you can't have everything, right? Do what you do well. Stay focused. Marketing's important now. But the experience of hospitality and making sure people feel like you want them in your restaurant when they come is important. And we lose that sometimes. The turnover's high sometimes too. Not in every company.
We're talking about staff?
Yeah.
Okay.
Staff's hard to get. Staff, after the pandemic especially, they want more money, but also they're not trained correctly.
Yeah.
So, everybody can talk the talk. Walking the walk's another thing, especially for a chef.
Well, you'll appreciate that. James and I were talking about that because I have a coaching business and hospitality, and I'm in healthcare as my primary occupation. And we always look to hire people in hospitality. Because they're face forward, they're talking about people, and you're feeding people that are hungry, and you want them to have that experience. So would you say, like, in having so many restaurants, is that your biggest stress? Is like people that walk around and carry themselves?
Years ago, making a customer happy was harder. Now it's making our employees happy. There's this victimhood thing. Not all of them, but some of them are just entitled, and it's across the board in the restaurant business, and it's hard work, man. It's hard, and the margins are slimmer and slimmer. But the word hospital and hospitality are the same.
Yeah.
You're giving, you're nurturing, and if you don't have that hospitable gene, if you don't get joy of impressing someone else or feeding or in your case, nurturing them or bringing them back to health or supporting their, healing. Food was that part too. Food was medicine. So and I think it has a lot to do with how you're raised. You either got the gene or you don't. Like, will I get off my seat in a restaurant when someone walks in and we're closed and make them dinner? Absolutely. I would, and a lot of people wouldn't. I'll say, you know what, we're closed, but guess what? I can give you a steak or tuna tartare. I'll whip something up. I can't do the whole menu. And you know what? Then you got a customer for life.
Forever.
But very few people are going to do that. But that's a customer. But you got to think forward like that. Like, you know what? Like a kid. You see a kid, I bring them back and make cotton candy. They're bored. They're with their parents. Their parents brought them to this fancy restaurant, right? Make it fun for them. So there's a lot. I wish there was more of that. And also technology gets in the way of sometimes, like open table, right? You make a reservation on the computer. The computer takes it. You walk in. There's a girl at the front door who's in high school or college who doesn't know your name. Just read it on the computer. There was no voice. There was no, "Lay, looking forward to seeing you. We'll have a nice table for you in the corner." Blah, blah. There's no, years ago, Mrs. Smith calls to listen. It's my husband and I's birthday. He's been working and traveling. Can we get a nice table in the corner? No problem, Mrs. Smith. We'll see you when you get here. My name is Johnny. Right? That's all missing.
It's gone now.
It's all gone. And a lot of the restaurants put hostess at the door. The biggest mistake, I make it too, is that you should have a manager at the door who knows who's coming and realizes how many times they're coming and make sure that there's this.
Buy a drink, do something nice. Yeah, absolutely agree. Philanthropy. what is your, foundation or something you get behind? I saw it on your list of hobbies and things you do. Let's share that to the audience.
Well, I think ever since I started when people, years ago when I first became a chef, like in the big leagues, they were asking us to, go cook at the James Beard House for. It was an honor to be asked, but it was also to help pay off the mortgage and get scholarships for kids. Can we do Meals on Wheels? Can you do Share Our Strength? Can you do the Cancer Association? You come and you cook. We charge $300 a ticket to get 5 great chefs, and all of a sudden we're fundraising.
Yeah,
we're
awesome.
Raising money. We're feeding people. We're feeding wealthy people that will pay the money to feed people that can't afford it. And I was involved on a charity up in Bergen County for 25 years called Table to Table. And yes, you should get some joy from it, but sometimes when you're doing a lot of it and you forget what the cause is, then you're just doing it for, they're pitching, they're talking. It has to mean something to you. So we started our own thing during the pandemic to Feed the Heroes. And
I saw that.
I'd like to
thousands of meals.
If I can raise $25,000 for a charity because I have to cook in someone's house for 10 people, I'm going to do it. Because it's a ridiculous amount of money that can go to that charity. How many people is that going to feed, right? In one day of my life? So we do it. Now you get a little older, and how many can you do a year? And if I'm working more than I've ever worked now because I have restaurants, I got to keep the balls in here. Yeah, and some of them are struggling, and some of them aren't. I don't think I'm alone in saying that the economy and the competition is real. What's happening out there is real. The prices of food in the supermarket are ridiculous. How do you think they are here? And labor, and the labor laws, and the pay. It's the business has changed, and the margins are tougher. And you know what? People don't want to work for less to learn like they once did. Like I worked for free in Europe. I went there for a year and worked for nothing to learn, right? That's hard to do now. And it's hard to get someone to buy into that because it's okay not to be the best. It's okay to be a chef in the middle. And that's the same in a lot of professions right now.
Without doubt,
it's okay not to win the trophy.
Well, listen, you can sit there and say, how many teams are in the NFL, but the reality is, unless you live in that city, you only know the Tom Brady's or whoever the quarterbacks you're going to spit out. It's the same thing. I was blown away when I was, studying up on you, the chefs they put you in a category with, and you were like, literally your name fired off in the top 5 with, the likes of a Gordon Ramsay or a different, it was pretty awesome to read. So congrats on that.
Yeah, I gotta read that. I need a hug.
Listen, you got a hug. When I put it in there and put it up there,
that's good to hear.
It was pretty impressive.
Sometimes we forget we're our own worst enemies. We're creative guys and hard girls and guys and chefs. We don't live on what we did yesterday.
Well, you know what? Though?
It's always what is the problem to solve today, and it's a good point. We should remember some of this stuff, man.
You got to celebrate the wins, right?
Yeah.
The one thing to stay with that though, and I'm going to make you go into your archive, and it could be something current, and it's going to be a flashbulb. You're going to see it. You're going to feel it. The restaurant that you opened, that you just loved. What was it?
Well, David Burke and Donatella was my first restaurant I opened as the principal. It was in 2003. It was December 23rd.
There you go.
A week later, it was beautiful, sexy. We had the best. It was one of the best restaurants in the city. Tiny kitchen. I put in about $800,000 of all my money, and so did my partner. And we made it back, and it was a strange name. But the art and the design and the food was phenomenal. All the people that worked in my kitchen were sous chefs or chefs that wanted to come back and see what we did. And my brother, who was finishing up the paint and such, I pulled up in a pretty nice car. It was a BMW or something. Like probably December 16th, ice cold out. Maybe it's 5 degrees. And he's in a T-shirt smoking outside with his crew, And he's like, hey, can we smoke in your car? And I'm like, no effing way. I said, I'll tell you what, if you finish by Christmas and we open, I'll get you a limo to smoke in. And I created the smoking limo. So you couldn't smoke in a restaurant after January 1st, 2004. I put a limo outside, and it was our smoking room. So we created a smoking lounge on a sidewalk in New York City that went viral before viral was a word.
Before it was
CNN all over the world, because most of the countries are passing the same law. So instead of going back to get your coat from the coat check, which is a pain in the ass, and going out to smoke,
heat's on, you zip right in the car.
People just took their drink and went to the limo. Heat was on, and the driver was outside.
So smart.
Man, it was great.
So stay on that line, right? The art you pick in these, you're an art collector,
Yep.
correct? So, I've been to a bunch of your restaurants and I'm always impressed. Are you a big part in the design?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm not a designer. I'm a decorator.
Got it.
I'm like, for example, if I take a restaurant like that's built and the walls are up, I can decorate it. I can't build from scratch, but I can help when we do design from scratch. I help my architects and designers. I look at the blueprints. I need the flow. I can envision a flow, but I need to go walk it too. I can't tell from a blueprint how many feet this is. So you
Understood.
I did it this morning, but I'm practical, but I also like color and wow factors. I like uniqueness. Like I want to go back to a restaurant. Like when you see something like this, you don't see art like that in a restaurant. You don't see this, right? It's not silly. It's kind of cool.
My guys loved it. Trust me, and they're way younger. So trust me, if you get the 19 to 22 year olds say they like the horse.
Look at those tomatoes up there.
Oh, 100%.
No. Those are tomatoes having sex. That's the name of that painting.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You see that? 1, 2, 3, 4.
With that, with that being said, I like that one. So, a little spicy. So, Minister.
Yeah, those vegetarians aren't so innocent.
Tell me about Minister. How'd that come about?
Oh, Minister. I
feel like that would be a
three
joke.
children. One of two boys from Jersey, from the same mom, and I have a beautiful daughter who's from Tennessee. They're all married now, but my oldest son tells me he's getting married and he wants to get married here. I'm like, great, thrilled. I'm thrilled, right? And I'm like, I go to church. I go to church once a month. Okay, maybe, that's about right. Once a month. I wish I could go more, but I get home late at night Saturday, so I'll get up early and go. And I said, well, who else is going to marry you? You've never been to church, because his mom never made him go to church. So I don't know what he is, but he's not practicing.
But he's not going to the Catholic church.
I said, hey, who's going to marry? How are you going to get a priest? He was like, I don't know. I didn't think of that. I said, I'll do it. So I get ordained. I got to tell you, it was one of the best days of my life. Not because, the fact that I did it because I was part of the wedding. I wasn't like, and it was here. So not only did I marry him, I catered it and I did the cake.
How awesome.
And it was and she came down, my daughter came down with the flower girl. It was so beautiful. And it was funny too, because he's like, Dad, if you marry me, he goes, you can't tell any jokes. He's like, you can't tell. I said, come on, one. He goes, okay, one. Because I was going to bring the puppet. And puppet was going to be, hey, the divorce rate is 55%, pal. You sure you want to do this? But I didn't do that.
So going back to this, hobbies to relax. I mean, you have, almost 20 restaurants, 16, which is you rounded up, it's almost 20. How does the chef relax?
It's hard. It's hard. I try to swim. I try to walk once in a while. I stop for a while. I travel. I eat out. It's a tough thing for me.
To shut your brain down.
It is. It's and it's very, but you have to do it. So, I mean, I get up early and I go get it. We're adrenaline junkies. Most chefs are very similar. We're creatives. We're adrenaline junkies. We're problem solvers. And we overthink everything. And for me, I always think about food and dishes. It might take me 2 years to create something, but I won't let go of it. And it's back. Yeah. It's like sticky notes.
The yellow sticky notes all over the place.
All around. You pull one or two of them down, put them together. Like I'll buy a piece of like a china, like a plate or something. I'll keep it on my office at home on the desk for a year until I finally something hits me. And I say, that's what that dish is for. That ashtray is going to be a creme brulee made of tobacco or whatever it may be. Something, or there's certain thing. I bought this Caesar head. Like a little bust of a Caesar head and had a hole for pencils. Yep. It's a pencil holder. And I'm like looking at it. I'm like, this is so stupid. I said, it's easy. Breadsticks go in there, put it at the bar. That's what we do with the goat. So now we have these Caesar heads with breadsticks, and you sit at the bar, and that's your snack. And people are like, that's cool as hell. But, that was an easy one because that's just, to me, it's like, that's not for pencils. That's for bread. And so, and that's how some things get created. Other things are much more based on seasonality, travels, hanging bacon from a clothesline.
Love it.
That was trial and error.
Is that at every restaurant? Orchard Park?
Yeah, that's in most of our, I'd say It's almost in all the restaurants.
Yeah.
But it's also in many restaurants that aren't mine. That's a very well copied dish. I was in Lisbon, and it was in Time Out magazine, Lisbon, of a local restaurant doing bacon on clothesline, which I went to eat. The Brazilian girl I was with speaks Portuguese, and she tells the waiter, "By the way, this is the chef that invented that." They're like, "Yeah, okay."
I love it. It's funny. Going out. Obviously, you meet your friend. James Avery.
He worked here.
That's what he said.
He worked here way back.
Yeah, that's what he said.
08 or something.
I was chuckling because, and I can't even imagine with you being, being internationally renowned, when you go into restaurants, like people walk up, they're like, "Holy shit, that's David Burke."
Depends. Sometimes yes. I walked into a restaurant called. I'm working on a Mediterranean concept as a consultant in Jersey City. So I went to this Mediterranean restaurant in New York City. Really in a meat pack, beautiful. Walked in I walked in. I don't go to City much anymore, even though I got 2 places there. But I walk in, and the maitre d's like, "Hey, chef, how you doing?" I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" It flattered, yes, but I didn't know him. And then I sat down, and the other manager came because it's really an honor to have you here, chef. We're all excited that you're joining us for dinner. I'm like, so then I wanted to see the kitchen because the guys I'm consulting with wanted to see the size of it. So we go back to say hi to the chef. He worked for me 15 years ago. So it's like, wow. So yes, it's very interesting when you're recognized in airports and I'm not Gordon Ramsay. I'm not on TV a lot, but I sell pots and pans around the world actually, and your face is on the thing. So you don't realize, I'm pretty low key about all that. But it's nice, when you, like I said, I'm in the airport and they're asking about the puppet. Because people watch reruns and they watch this, or they follow you. That's kind of nice. You work hard to get that recognition.
So I'll tell you.
But also with that recognition, you got to read your bad Yelp reviews.
Oh, yeah.
And
well,
sometimes
that comes too.
that's a bite in the butt sometimes because people can be cruel and your name. It's like, listen, the average person, if you eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner and lived at 90 years, you eat 90,000 meals in your lifetime. Okay, so are you really going to get that twisted over overcooked burger? Give me a break.
Exactly. So, beekeeper.
I am a amateur. No, I have bees in my yard.
Okay.
I have bees in my yard. I have Oak Hill Farms. It's in Homedale. If you haven't been there, you got to try it. And I went over there and I got friendly with the owners of Oak Hill Farms, and they helped me set everything up. And basically, have been taking care of teaching me how to do it. And the last 2 times I was down, I haven't really been able to get down there as much, but the honey I got is amazing. The beauty of it, I want to shoot a TV show at my house as an apprentice show, with kids living there for 6 weeks, working in my restaurants, teaching them this and that. Beekeeping would be one of them, making beer down the street, a carton might be another, couple other things. That's how but it's amazing that I've been cooking for long and I don't know anything about honey. I don't know anything. I know a lot about salt because I got a patent with the salt wall. I know a lot about aging meat. I know a lot about a lot, but things like honey that we take for granted, it's very complicated and a wonderful story how the bees do all that stuff.
So one of the things when James and I came into be, and hearing you say like, you don't have to have all these crazy credentials to be a chef, right? So I food prep like an animal on Sundays, right? And I put out 40 meals in 2 hours. And, for the week, and I turn them over and I clean, and I'm a little OCD, right? So literally as the pan comes off, it's sizzling, it's cleaned, it's there. And I don't let anybody in the kitchen, right? I'm like the crazy, like I couldn't even imagine, like no one could come on my food line. Like, and it's locked down from the blender to there. And I even got my own outdoor, like pull open refrigerator that I do all my food stuff. And James goes, "You're pretty good, dude." And I laughed and I said, the thing is though, is the creativity. And then talking, like if I'm talking to you, just like you said, like how to turn things into different tastes and that little modification. I said, I make chicken the same way. Now it's perfect. You'd actually be impressed, and, people ask and I'm like Rain Man with it. 420, 27 minutes. I don't deviate. This is what it is. And it's like perfect every time. So, but I said to James, you know, what's funny? It's like people ask me healthcare questions in physical medicine. I said, but what if I want to make it a Japanese spice or because keep it creative. So he's like, we're going to create chicken and rice. like 50 ways how to do it. But for guys, like the regular guys, like these guys, we're in gyms all the time. And I hear people, they're just making like gross chopped meat and rice. And I'm like, and you eat that every day, 4 times a day? And you think about this, like, you love, like, what do you do on your days off? You go out to eat. Food is love. Like my mom always says, like, food is love, so I'm like, we got to put some love into this food.
I'm working on a Mediterranean concept. So I went to that one restaurant, very high end in New York. And then last night I drove all the way to East Rutherford by myself to go eat because I saw this menu online. And I said, you know what, because I had to turn in the first draft of the menu today. And I had some questions. You
had some ideas in the head you had to
proof.
I
just want to, I don't know. Mediterranean cuisine, it's so many countries. So, you got to figure it out. And you can't do everything. So you got to fine tune it. And then this morning I nailed it. I got the first draft out. All things I'm comfortable doing. Now we work on some wow factors and some honeycomb on top of the pork belly, things that are going to be
coming into play.
Yeah.
Love
and
it.
Then dessert halva, that tahini dessert. So you got to have things that are, that's the challenge, which is good.
It makes people think, right?
Well, yeah. And, why give some, let's give a memory. You when people come to a restaurant, they need to take a postcard. You're not that old. You remember the postcard?
Yeah, absolutely.
They need that mental postcard to take with them. Like you can eat in the best restaurant in the world, 10 courses. And a year later, not remember one dish. Remember it was great, and the building was nice, and the waiter was good, and you had maybe an oyster and some souffle and some cheese course. But if you don't envision that cake pop tree or the clothesline bacon.
The clothesline bacon for me is the go-to, yeah.
Or that interactiveness or the way they did something or, we serve a chocolate cake and we give you the beaters with the batter ahead of time. That little touch is what makes people smile and say, man, when was the last time I saw one of these beaters?
Details.
In the details.
So we're going to close on this question. What's next for Chef David Burke? What's the big thing? Like, in other words, like, the 2-year, 5-year plan, like, what do you see? Where are you going?
We just opened a pizzeria concept called Goat Pizza in North Carolina. We're hoping that becomes something we open many of. It's in its 4th month. Summer's not a pizza. Pizza's not, there's no line out the door for pizza, and especially it's in the lake community. So there's barbecue, there's boating. Yeah. But we had the first 2 months were great. We're still doing well, but our numbers are in line. That's one thing. I'd like to teach. I want to get the restaurants back on, a lot of them back on track. I got a project in Flemington, another one in North Palm Beach. We might do something else in Vegas. I don't know. We're probably going to fine tune a few things. I got work to do in New York City. But I think 8 years from now or so, I'd like to be teaching as part of my job. Because I can teach and I have a lot of knowledge and I get joy out of it, and again, I'm a little heavy, but I'm strong. But I feel it now. I drive 1,000 miles a week. That's a lot.
Listen, I think you drove 1,000 yesterday just trying to check out the Mediterranean menus.
Oh yeah. No. I'll go. Now I'm driving to Rhode Island on Saturday.
Yeah.
But I couldn't finish this menu until I had some answers. So I had to go get it. Like I had to go get these eggplant chips and the saganaki, and I'm not going to use all the Greek stuff. Because I think my Mediterranean food is better based on, more in the French Mediterranean and some Italian Mediterranean, Spanish as opposed to, but we're going to use some Middle Eastern spices and we're going to use some Moroccan and a little kiss here and there, but not so much. We'll have hummus and some of these things, but we got to get creative with it because you can't make 40 dishes. You got to have 30. 40 is too much. And then and you still need the American steak. People still want a steak, and they still want a burger. So, you've got to, no one wants a lamb burger. I don't care what you say. You can say they do, they don't. If people want a lamb burger, we'd have a lamb burger drive-through somewhere, And the same thing is with pig's ears and bone marrow, and people are like, we got to put sweet bread, this on the menu. I said, listen, if there isn't a fast food restaurant serving it,
it ain't happening.
It's not. Nobody wakes up and rolls over to their loved one and says, honey, tonight we're getting pig's ears. It's pizza, it's pasta, it's Chinese, it's steak, it's fine dining, it's French, Mediterranean, Greek, or whatever, and Indian food. Whatever it is, there's some parentheses around what you think you want.
I love it. Well, Chef David, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Today's podcast was absolutely fantastic. I know my mom's listening to it,
Hey,
and and she loves you.
She's
so
got to be proud of you.
yeah,
That's good.
so-
That's good that you mentioned her.
But the reality is the fire you still have this many years later is impressive. That's what I always love showing to the audience, the importance that if you want to have excellence, it's about consistency. It's about keeping that hunger in the fire. And I don't care what it is. I don't care whether it's legal practice or restaurant business, healthcare. The fact that you're going after it and you're going to these restaurants to get an idea is just impressive. And, I wish you all the success with all your future endeavors. So thank you so much.
Same to you. Thanks for having me.
Guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Again, Chef David Burke, absolutely impressive man. Look forward to seeing all of his adventures coming up, and we'll see you again soon. Take care.